Hey there, and thanks for joining us for this episode. And as we get started, I wanted to remind you to make sure that you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may be listening to podcasts. This podcast is sponsored by ServeHQ.church. ServeHQ is a place where you can train your volunteers and leaders online through effective video courses. And really, that's just the beginning. You've probably dealt with that frustration of trying to coordinate meeting times for training, trying to organize materials for helping people learn how to, whatever it may be, do some type of volunteer work or procedure at your church. And it quite honestly can just be really frustrating. Well, ServeHQ simplifies all of that by, again, putting it all online, allowing people to watch it and learn how to do ministry at your church at their pace. You can learn more and start using ServeHQ at www.servehq.church. That's www.servehq.church. Thanks to ServeHQ for sponsoring this episode. Well, now I look forward to presenting the main content of today's episode as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope right here on the Church Advance podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Church Advance podcast. I'm excited for part 2 of this discussion on pastoral compensation, ministry, and money. And Luke, we had a good start last time. We're going to wrap this, or at least get a little further down the road in this episode. Remind us of where we were last time.
Yeah, so we covered these 4 core thoughts in the last episode. Go back and check it out if you missed it. Number 1, those who preach the gospel are instructed to make their living from the gospel. And that segued into number 2, which is pastors may voluntarily make their income from other sources for the sake of the gospel. But that's a voluntary basis. That's the pastor makes that choice, not the other way around. And if the church makes that choice for them. Then number 3, pastors have the responsibility to take care of their families financially. And then we ended on point 4, which is that churches are instructed to honor and care for their pastors. And we're about to get to point number 5, which is just simply poverty theology is bad. But before we do, speaking of coming up with other sources of income for your family, Brian, but also being a great blessing to families and churches out there, your new book, Rescued, is coming out soon. It's available for pre-order. How you feeling?
Yeah, feeling great, man. Here's the awesome thing. You're exactly right. Things that help people can also be sources of income. It's people sometimes think nonprofit means you don't make a profit. That's not what it means. It means that the people that are governing the agency don't share in the corporation's like owner shares of the corporation, unlike Tesla that just gave like Elon Musk like billions of dollars of share in Tesla. I don't get a share in Church Advance or a share in Pulpit Advance or a share in River City Baptist Church. I don't become an owner. So do a little fact checking for yourself on what nonprofit means. Nonprofit means that the profits of the organization go into the mission of the organization to be used for said purposes. And so, I in fact, is Luke, in light of what we said last week, I've been bivocational my whole ministry life. Especially as I've been pastor here, when I came to a really tough situation, a church that could not pay me all that I needed, I continued to preach as a conference speaker and receive honorariums. I continued to coach people. I continued to now author a book and other different things that I've done on the side to make sure my family was taken care of. But Rescued is an awesome book, and you can order it at briansams.com/rescued. You can now get the Kindle version at Amazon Kindle. You can just go in the search bar, type in Rescued Brian Sams. It'll be the first thing that pops. And it's a Kindle ebook version, of course, that you can get. And check us out, man. We'd love to serve you. We'd love to serve your church. Any of our individual fans, we'd love to have you. If your church has a bookstore, let me know. If your church has a special event, this will be a perfect gift for guests. The gospel's in it very clearly. And so let me know if there's a way our book can help your ministry in that way as well. And we'll surely be thankful for any support you give us our way.
Yeah, well, Brian, like you said, I think you mentioned you're going to be speaking at a couples retreat, and that church is going to be also giving the books to each couple there because it's a family resource. Again, it's amazing how it's like we said before. It's not just about adoption; it's about so much more. Family, how God works. So it's really good.
Oh,
Also,
then,
Brian,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say one other avenue that we haven't said much about is that we have an 8-week Bible study series for
Oh,
connection
that's
groups
exactly what I was about to say.
tied to the book. It's 8 small, like 15-minute videos that are tied to the book with biblical principles. The design is for a site leader to be able to show the video, then use a discussion guide from the video and from the book that's already been created. When you order this, you will get access to the 8 videos for your upcoming connection groups, as well as the PDF download that accompanies it. And whoever leads the class gets a free copy of the book with that purchase as well. So check us out. I hope, man, I know some churches that are looking to do this. We're going to do it here as well. And I think it'd be a real cool thing for your church, small group to do, family ministry, marriage class, something like that. Be a great resource for you.
Yeah. So check that out again, briansams.com/rescued, or search it on Amazon for just the ebook there. And when's the launch date again, Brian?
September 23rd is the official
23rd.
publication day. September 22nd, there's a pre-launch at our church with a book signing. And then at September 24th, which is Tuesday night, is the launch of the book at the Cut It Straight National Preaching Conference there with H.B. Charles. And I'm a speaker at the conference, and I've got a table that'll be there set up for everyone that may want to get the book there live, and be glad to help you with that if you're coming to the conference.
All right. Very good. Excited for you, Brian. Excited for your book.
Thank you.
And like you said, nothing wrong with, I think it's Dave Ramsey who says something to the effect of, we're not in the business, or be in the business of helping people, and you'll make the money. That's really what pastoral ministry, authorship, in this case of a book, is all about. And so, let's dive back into the conversation with point number 5, which again, I love, simply stating that poverty theology is bad.
Yeah, the belief that poverty or some type of deprivation is that by doing that you are inherently more spiritual is just a bad theology, or that somehow God desires his people, specifically his ministers, to be in want or lack is unbiblical and harmful. Can you do it? Can you risk your life? Can you hazard? Sure. But if it's to the neglect of things that God has clearly said should be true, it is a misunderstanding of sacrifice and stewardship. And so, think about this. God desires our whole person to be in order. Think of the statement in 3 John verse 2 that where John prays for Gaius. He says this: I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. So Paul said, John, I keep saying Paul. John wanted your soul health to be co-equal with your personal health, even physical health. He did not value somebody sacrificing themselves physically, monetarily, in any way. Now, Paul did go through some difficult times. He knew what it was like, but he was always supplied for. That's the key. Paul did receive offerings, even though he knew what it was like to be shipwrecked and broken, but he still did. God blessed him financially and physically, took care of him, as we would say it. There's nothing spiritual about not being there. For instance, Proverbs 10:22, the blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it. God is the giver of wealth. God is the giver of blessing. Psalm 37 verse 2, I was young, I've been old, I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor his seed begging bread. God guarantees to provide for his people. He doesn't guarantee wealth. There's a difference.
Yeah.
But the opposite extreme of this wealth is poverty. Okay. It counters the idea, okay, that God certainly doesn't want us pursuing wealth. We know there's nothing bad about being wealthy. David was wealthy, Solomon's wealthy, Abraham is wealthy. Uh, Nothing. God does not inherently condemn being wealthy. He condemns the pursuit of wealth to the neglect of your spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
On the other hand, he promises that we are going to be taken care of, and he assures us that he will supply that in all of our needs. So the problem has never been with wealth. It's the love of wealth and trusting in wealth, as 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. So now, guys, what I tried to describe for you there was a distinction between sacrifice for the gospel, which is welcomed, which is necessary. We all should have done that. It should have hurt to give a little bit along the way. Some people do this when they leave to be missionaries, or they and if they're not doing that, they'll withhold certain things they could have for themselves to provide for missionaries. Whatever it is, it might be that you're willing to give something, do something, even spend your life somewhere difficult for the gospel. There's nothing that's different than a theology that glorifies poverty,
Yeah.
as if poverty is the ultimate expression of being spiritual. It's just not the case.
Yeah.
Dangerously, poverty theology can lead to burnout. It can lead to neglecting of the family. It can lead to a perception that poverty is superior to abundance. It's just not.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Bible. God is a God of abundance, not scarcity. He desires his servants to be well equipped for their job. He will supply the need. He will take care of his people. And I know it seems like there's a fine line there, but there's really not. One is self-volunteer sacrifice within the means of still supplying for your family. The other is a reckless ignorance of what God would have somebody to do in terms of taking care of their family. And I think poverty theology should be avoided at all cost.
Yeah, yeah, and because it's not, it's like I say, it goes back to kind of what we were saying in the last episode. If this is a step of faith or a choice that you make, that you're going to not live in poverty, but that you're going to, live in a less comfortable, I guess, income level, and you're going to maybe give more, sacrifice more, like you said, whether that be of your actual physical, tangible money and goods, or of your time and your future by going, across the ocean to another foreign field, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
If that's a choice that you make and something that God genuinely leads you to do, so be it. However, if it is something that's coming from a sense of guilt, shame, that is being imposed upon you by a unhealthy and just flat out wrong poverty theology mindset, that's completely different.
That's
and
a really good.
Yeah.
No, it's
and I think, Brian,
just a great distinction.
Yeah. And I think, Brian, you would say the same about giving, like if you're
Absolutely.
giving because, and again, maybe you're sacrificially giving for a season or for however long it is, because you're generally feeling the Holy Spirit, great. But if it's because you're feeling condemned and you're feeling maybe some pastoral or leadership guilt, that's different. Not to mention, Brian, when it comes to poverty theology, I think in churches, and this is, again, I don't want to follow this rabbit too far because I want to stay on topic, but I think of the unhealthy culture that creates for churches in that when somebody maybe that is, wealthy or of a higher income status walks into a church with a mindset of poverty theology, they are not necessarily attracted to that. They don't feel like they fit in. They don't feel like they belong. And because I have seen churches that emphasize this poverty theology to the degree that they're just attracting a bunch of people in poverty. And I mean, this whole topic is about finances. A church needs finances to grow, not just to pay its pastor and its staff, but to grow and to reach people for the gospel. But if the church is full of people that are, quote unquote, living in poverty, then how can it continue to do that.
Yeah.
Again, there's low income churches, whatever. We're not condemning that, but it's preaching and heralding a mindset like that.
It's just
unhealthy overall.
It's just got a false premise behind it. That's the point. The premise is just bad.
Yeah.
Can you be willing? Of course. Does God automatically call everybody who's a Christian or serving him to live in poverty? And of course, that answer is no. I could say I want to move to El Salvador and live among the broken and poor and volunteer that. I can volunteer that. Sure, that's admirable. Nobody's going to say anything wrong with that. It's the idea that nobody should have money. Nobody should be compensated. Yeah. We should all be poor in order to accomplish A, B, C, and D. And you're right. It was a great analogy that you gave. To the flip side, though, number 6 is this: serving the Lord for what the Bible calls filthy lucre. I always love that phrase, filthy lucre, which is money, lucre, gotten with a bad motivation. Pastors should be supported. We've already established that. Ministry should never be entered into or sustained primarily for financial gain. The motivation for ministry should be people and God, in the reverse order, God and people, not greed. Now, again, if you're doing it for financial gain, you're in the wrong business. Go find another business to make more financial gain. But I think if we're not careful, we can enter into ministry because there can be finances to be gained from it. The Bible says in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 2, do not pursue dishonest gain. That's filthy lucre. That means our motives are dishonest. That means we're saying we're in it for people. We're here because we love people. We're here because we want to preach the gospel. We want the nations to be reached. But the real reason is because we found a niche. We found a financial reward. Yeah. Titus chapter 1, verse 7 makes it an absolute biblical qualification for pastors. They are not to pursue dishonest gain. The pursuit and the nature of the gain are in order. We are not to pursue money dishonestly in any way, but we are not to, the gain itself is not to be dishonest. The Bible says in this, 1 Timothy 6:1, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. For some people, eager for money have wandered from the faith. So money can corrupt people. It can corrupt motives. It can lead to disaster. It can take people off track. And here's the thing, guys. Only you or me can discern that for ourselves. Here's the question. Why am I doing this? Why am I in the ministry? Why am I a pastor? Have I lost my way a little bit here? Think about this. Here's a good question. All things being equal, if you could make the same amount of money with the same amount of basic schedule and stuff that you have right now doing something else, would you do it? I think that's a really good question. And what would that be? Maybe you should do that. Again, but if it's just a place of comfort, if it's a place that's allowed me to not work, not pray, not serve, not this, then that's probably the wrong motive, right? This is different from receiving appropriate compensation. It has to do with the pursuit of money that for instance, let's just say, at the drop of a hat, if I go to the next church that would offer me more money, is that the point of ministry? Now, again, if you're in a tough situation, you're not making enough, and you get an opportunity to go to something that can adequately take care of your family, great. But if this is more like, just like the guy coming in as a junior officer, now he's a junior vice president, now he's vice president, now he's an executive, that's the whole point, then you're probably not in the right business. I think that's really what's being discussed there. It's more motive and pursuit rather than healthy compensation. So that's filthy lucre, man. You can't be doing that. And then it really, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like you said, if that's why you're pursuing ministry, you're in the wrong business. If you want to, like you said, nothing wrong with a pursuit of wealth from a healthy perspective. But, if you, and I will say, some guys are just entrepreneurial minded, and they may get into ministry or whatever. I've seen it happen all the time, actually. Guys that get into ministry and they go, you know what, this is cool and all, but I have some really great ideas to go and start businesses and do things. Well, great, go do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you figure out, which is kind of leading into our next point, if you're trying to figure out ways to make money off of the ministry, like, turn it into some type of a profit center, and like you said, with the wrong motivations, that's a problem. And so the next point is prostituting the gospel for personal gain, absent of true ministerial intentions, is sinful.
Yeah, and you can see this. I mean, Second Peter, the false prophets, that it talks about that, and this is particularly a principle from people who are just they don't even believe the gospel. They're not even proclaiming the gospel. They have found a way to profit from something that they don't even believe. 2 Peter 2, there were also false prophets among the people. And then it goes on down to says they follow their depraved conduct, their greed. They exploit you with fabricated stories. Um, so they're basically not even following the gospel. They're just exploiting you with made up stuff. You see this a lot, I think, in the prosperity gospel, the Kenneth Copelands and the Benny Hinns and all the such. They found a niche. They found something that's not gospel related. So exploiting the gospel for personal enrichment without a genuine heart for ministry or for the spiritual well-being of others is a grave sin and distortion of gospel calling. It manifests itself to prosperity gospels to one extreme, to certainly fraud on the other extreme. Yep. Meaning you actually are using a ministry to become somebody who's basically a thief. And you see this, you will see this happen from time to time. It gets caught. I mean, they say years ago, the three things that take out pastors are gold, girls, and glory. The women, wealth, and I can't remember all, but basically that money, laundering money, or stealing money, or cooking books, or misappropriating funds for personal gain. There was a woman here in Florida, just not too far from First Baptist Fernandina Beach, I think it was. She got arrested. She had spent, like, over the course of 4 or 5 years, $400,000 on personal vacations and financial pursuits and all kinds of stuff. And she got caught, thankfully, and got rung up for that. That's what this is. That's what this is. I'm going to serve the Lord at the church, right? But you're not serving the Lord at all. You're serving yourself. That's the real distinction. The Bible talks about false teachers in Romans 16:18. For such people are not serving the Lord. They're serving their own appetites. Titus 1:11. Again, false teachers. They do it for dishonest gain. And so, again, we don't have to beat the horse again, but I do think somebody could throw that out there. You're just in it for money. Well, you don't know that just because somebody is being compensated doesn't mean they are doing it for that reason. But there can be a intent and even distortion of a message that should set apart someone who's actually in it for dishonest gain. You see this all the time with prosperity gospel guys. I mean, they are there. I mean, Kenneth Copeland, I think Jesse Duplantis, they're notorious. And while those men could solve, get this, they could solve the adoption waiting crisis or the foster care crisis a lot of times in the states they live in just with one drop of a hat. Again, is there anything wrong with being wealthy? No, but when you're prostituting a false message, a false gospel with false motives, because by distorting it, I can gain from that. And then there's no evidence that the helping of people, the preaching of the gospel, alleviation of poverty, whatever else it is at the core of their heart. And I would recommend I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen enough. I listened to a little bit of a podcast about it the other day, religion business. And it really, really goes into how this is on a large scale, particularly in the mega churches, some of these other churches, how that, there's just some sad things being done in the name of God. And certainly God's against that. I think that's the point.
Yeah, not to mention those that are doing that, which again is a very small percentage
Right.
of pastors and churches in America or in the world, but it makes a bad name for everyone else. Anytime there's that business of religion, some type of documentary like that, like when we reviewed the Let Us Pray documentary, you know,
Mhm.
horrible, tragic things. It is the minority, though. It's
Right.
happening, but in a
Absolutely.
very small minority.
Right.
Unfortunately, though, that gets broad brushed by the unbeliever, by the unchurched, on the whole church,
All
and
churches
it
are like
just
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's
All
just a bad
pastors are
a
like
bad
that.
testimony. And so Brian, I have this question that's coming to mind as we talk about all this, and I don't know if there's a straight answer. There's probably not, but I just wanted to chase this rabbit for a minute. Let's say, okay, so you're in a church, and again, going to be a rare situation where you're in a church that's larger, it's growing, or it has grown rather to a point to where financially the church is doing good, you're doing good. Uh, is there like, I don't know, is there a point, an amount, a again, just kind of a distinguishing boundary marker parameter that a pastor should put in place to be like, okay, I'm making too much money, I'm doing too well? Like, how would a pastor
Hmm.
potentially navigate that and not turn into, again, and let's just assume there's no funny
Yeah.
business in terms of cooking books or laundering or even preaching the
Yeah.
wrong gospel, but
The
just a
church is just
genuinely
doing,
gospel
the
preaching
church is
church that's
doing
making money.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Church is growing. Yeah. In fact, I tell you what, Luke, it kind of gets into number 10 here a little bit, but let me just dive into it a little bit, because I think this is important. The way you know this is that pastors should use normal means of grace to determine salaries and pay structures for the pastors and their staff. So there, just like any business, any um, a job, if you will, there are norms. Okay, there are norms. That is, okay. Let's say my church of 250. I in Florida, in this city, with my education, with my amount of children, my experience, all those things. There are ways to determine what is normal, and normal means on the 100 scale, you're fitting in. You're in the 50th percentile. That's what we call normal. Um, to be well paid or well compensated, again, because you can't compare a church like mine to a church of 30.
Yeah.
That pastor, that whole thing's going to look different. Or you can't compare me to a much larger organization like a mega church or something like that. But within those parameters, there are normals, and then there are what we would call the top 25th percentile. That is, if you make this much with this kind of package, you're in the top 25 percentile. I think if you're going over that and you're way past that, I think maybe it's time to be asking the question, is that a good thing?
Mhm.
Now, I'm not even think it's a bad thing to be in the top 25 percentile. I'm getting some of these numbers from churchsalary.com or Guidestone. We could talk about that more in a minute. But the point is, if you're a church and you're looking at the normals and your pastor is below the 50th percentile, you should definitely bring him up to normal. If you feel like your pastor's doing a great job and has a proven track record, why not make your pastor well compensated for the work that he does? But there's a difference between that and being exuberant. Now, I get this. Exuberance for a pastor is going to look different than exuberance for a CEO of a multi-employee corporation. Uh, but there are ways, there are standards by which you can evaluate that. And I would
Yeah.
just say, if you're a pastor, let's say, and you're in one of these mega churches and you're making well past the top 25th percentile, and would you not consider maybe that you could put a self cap on, or let's say you don't put a self cap on. Here's another idea. Why don't you put a cap on your living,
Mhm.
so that then you could turn around, like this is what what's his name, Rick Warren, did, that I admired so much.
Mhm.
That he reversed tithe.
Yeah.
Um, okay, again, nothing wrong being wealthy. But if you're in that world over there, then maybe you should consider the way that you're giving and
Yeah.
the way that you're sacrificing above that in order to whatever. That's an idea
Uh-huh.
that I've got. I think if a pastor's looking for more than that, he's probably in the wrong business. Um, he shouldn't be doing that anyways.
Yeah.
But I also think this is a lot from the church's perspective. How should they do this? How should they take care of their pastor? And those are the ways I would consider doing that.
Yeah, well, Rick Warren, that's the example I was thinking of as you were speaking too. Because if I remember right, he not only reverse tithed, but he essentially backpaid all of his salary from his book sales.
Right.
His books did so well, like them or lump them, they did so well that he was able to not just
Right.
reverse tithe, but also pay back his church for the years of
Yeah.
salary they'd
So
given
you
him. And
could say, like him or not, you could say that guy wasn't in it for money.
Yeah.
That to do that is extraordinary.
And he's an example of someone he's clearly been blessed, but he's also seemed to have taken a humble approach and a generous approach of God's blessed me, so I'm going to bless my church and others. And so, well, Brian, I think once again we've kind of hit a good pausing point. I know we teased a little bit of the content in the next episode. There, got ahead of ourselves a little bit.
But let's feature next week. Next time, we're going to feature some practical applications. Yeah. That's really number 8, 9, and 10. They're really the practical applications of everything we said. So we won't hammer on the theology and that anymore. But I do think there's some practical takeaways. So join us next week, and thank y'all for being with us at the Church Advance Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode. And I do want to remind you to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. While you're there, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and then share the podcast with other pastors and leaders that you believe this content could be a help to. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we'd really appreciate it if you'd like this video, and then also share a comment with any thoughts, feedback, or questions you may have. We may just be able to answer those in a future episode. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches. And we'll see you next time right here on the Church Advance Podcast.